My name is Dane, and I'm going to be talking about e-commerce platforms, the big names in 2020. My business is called Touch Dreams, and for the past sort of eight or so years, we've been making all kinds of websites for all kinds of clients in Cape Town and outside of them. And as you can imagine, very recently, the last couple of months, we've been really focusing on building e-commerce and online platforms and e-commerce stores in particular. So to get started, first things first, if you have any questions while we're going through this, I have shared the slides, a link to the slides with Alex, and he'll send you a link as well, and I put it on the Deep South Devs meetup group. So if you want to make notes of anything that I talk about, you don't need to, in terms of the slides are there for free for you to, and you can also follow along if you'd like to as well. Thanks, Alex has just posted in the chat if you'd like to go to it. And also, if you have any questions, remember to just, Alex, did I put the questions in the chat?
Yes, thanks for reminding me. Please do that, and then in Q&A we'll actually refer to the chat to answer the questions. Thanks for that.
Cool, yeah. So I'll do my best to answer questions later on if we get a chance. If we get to that. All right, so let's jump in. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different platforms, but in particular, I'm going to be talking about WooCommerce, which is built on WordPress, and Shopify. They're the two biggest names, but I'm also going to be talking about PrestaShop and Magento. But before we get to that, because I'm going to get to that in the next slide, I want to talk about the other platforms just to give a bit of context. So in the bottom left-hand corner here, we've got BigCommerce, ZenCart, DrupalCommerce, and OpenCart. Each of them are pretty good e-commerce software, and they all have their pros and their cons. They're just not as big as the top four over there, so I'm not going to spend much time on them, any more time. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see four logos that one or two of them you might recognize: Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, and Webflow. These are what I'd call online all-in-one site builders, where you can build your site, drag and drop. You don't need to write any code or anything like that. They're great for building websites, and each of them does have a plugin or an extension that you can pay for to add a sort of an upgrade to add e-commerce to your website, which is great if you're selling one or two products. But if you're going to sell a whole bunch of products and you need an online store, I wouldn't recommend going with them because they're not going to have all the features that you need. So let's hop into comparing the top four options there. First off, this is a chart of the last 5 years, and this is from Google Trends. So this is how popular the top four platforms have been over the last 5 years. As you can see, the yellow line, which is Magento, started off the strongest about 5 years ago. It was about double as popular as the other three, but it's kind of just tailed off for the last couple of years. WooCommerce and PrestaShop have stayed more or less the same, more or less flat over that time, except WooCommerce, the red line, has gone up a little bit over the last couple of months. And of course, the blue line, Shopify, has taken the world of e-commerce by storm. It's really way shot past the others, and you can see they've totally capitalized on the last couple of months. That incredible uptick of popularity is quite something. So Shopify is really the big name to beat here. So let's contrast and compare the top two platforms, because I'm going to be talking most about them. So firstly, WooCommerce is built on top of WordPress, which is a blogging platform and a content management system. It's free and open source software. That means you can download it to your computer or to your web host, and you can tinker with it. You can change it as much as you like. It's completely, and all of the code is available for you to edit. And it's open, and that's what open source means, and it's free, that you don't have to pay for it. It's self-hosted, which means that when you download, you have to sort out the hosting, which it's not a big cost. It's a small cost, but it is an important consideration, which we'll get to later. It's built on a code language called PHP. So most developers will find it very friendly, relatively easy to extend, and it's kind of infinitely customizable because it's open source. But it does have ads here and there. Because it's free, they need to make the developers need to make the money somewhere. So they sell all kinds of add-ons and extensions and plugins. So you'll see ads, not in the front end. Your customers won't see any ads, but you'll see ads in the back end when you're logged in, managing your website. Now contrast that with Shopify, which is a Canadian business. It is proprietary software, so you you can't really edit the code of Shopify itself. You can add plugins and extensions, but the code itself is very locked down. It's very safe. It's very secure. It's cloud hosted. So once you pay the monthly cost, Shopify has a distinct monthly cost and other costs as well. Then you don't have to worry about the security or hosting. It's just there online for you straight away. Developers can customize it and extend it a little bit, but its extensibility is not like WooCommerce. It's quite limited in that sense. Press to Shop is kind of right in the middle. It's this third option. It's kind of as slick and easy to use as Shopify, but it's kind of it's free and open source software like WooCommerce. And it's so therefore quite extendable, and you can edit it. But the only thing about it is it's quite a lot less popular than the other two. So that's the only one thing that I would be concerned a little bit with. There's a lot fewer people working with it, particularly in South Africa. So there's going to be a lot less support for it. Magento is kind of on the far extreme on the left. It is free and open source software, at least the main version is, but it's much more complicated and much more flexible, but more complicated and more difficult to use in general. And it was recently, about 2 years ago, bought by Adobe, the guys who make Photoshop. So they're taking it in a particular direction that I think a lot of people would probably not be happy with, unless you're an Adobe fan. Okay, so let's talk about the features. And in particular, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Don't worry about the little chart on the right. I've made it small intentionally because that's what we're going to come back to later. I'm going to come back to like an overview of which platforms have which features. But really what I'm going to be talking about is what the platforms have out the box, as in what you get when you first start using it, before you add a theme, before you add any plugins. It's just the basics, what you get out the box. I'm going to be talking about first the different types of products that you might use in your online store. Then I'm going to talk about the basic and advanced features. I'm going to talk about going beyond e-commerce features. That's where WordPress and WooCommerce is going to kind of shine, point number 4. And then some other considerations as well when you're choosing your platform. All right, so let's jump straight in with product types. As you can imagine, most online stores, the most popular common type of product to sell is a physical product where, when someone purchases it, you're going to ship something to them physically. And of course, another kind is variable products. So a variable product is not really a type of product, but more of a way of thinking. Imagine a t-shirt. You're selling a t-shirt and it comes in different colors and different sizes, but it's one t-shirt product. That would be a variable product. It's one product that has multiple variations, a variation of each color and size. So that's a variable product. Then there's a bunch of others. By default, out the box, WooCommerce and Shopify both do physical products and variable products. But there's all sorts of plugins to do the rest, like subscriptions, memberships, bookings. A bundle is like multiple products bundled together. So when you purchase them, you get multiple products in your cart at once. That's sort of an overview of what they are. Customizable product, think of that as like if you're buying flowers for someone and then you write a message on the card. So when you purchase it, then you can add a bit of extra information to the purchase. That's a customizable product, and then and it can get much more extreme than that. And then a download, obviously, like a non-physical product, like a software or an ebook or something. All right, so let's start talking about basic e-commerce features. And we're going to start with the first question that anyone thinks about when they want to build an online store or any website in general is the theme, which is really it really determines what your website looks and feels like, the look and feel. Both of them, Shopify and WooCommerce, they both have thousands of themes, both free and premium or paid themes. And so there's so much choice. And they both come with a free theme out the box. The thing about choosing a theme is it's kind of like a rabbit hole you can really get lost in. So what I would recommend is do a bit of research first, look at your competitors, look at websites that you admire, especially really good e-commerce sites. Figure out what you would like your website to have and to look like in particular, and then maybe sketch it out on a piece of paper, a pen and paper, and then search for a theme. And if you're starting out from scratch, pick a theme and just get going. Don't worry about the theme too much to start off with, because you can always change the theme later, maybe just before you launch or later on, to not get caught in that rabbit hole. Next up, we're going to be talking about the very, very basics of e-commerce, a product listing page. You'll see I've got one of each product listing page over here, screenshots of WooCommerce on the left and Shopify on the right. They're quite similar. As you can see, I've copied the same products on both. One big distinction that you'll notice on the WooCommerce side, on the right-hand side of the WooCommerce screenshot is a sidebar. And you can see a couple of different, like what we call search filters or facets. I'm going to get into this in more detail just now. But the main point I want to make here is that WooCommerce does have the sidebar with extra ways to search and filter your products, which is really helpful, which Shopify doesn't have by default. So that's just an extra little feature that WooCommerce, well, big feature that WooCommerce has that's important. All right, so this is, of course, the foundation of any online store is its products and its product pages. This is a screenshot from WooCommerce of a very basic product. You can see it's got a picture, title, it's on sale, reviews and ratings, prices. In this case, it's got a price range, and then variations. You can see you can select color, you can select a different color variation, and then your add to cart button and a description. And in this case, reviews and additional information. So that's a very basic product page. And the Shopify one looks just a little different, but works exactly the same sort of information. Now your customers are going to want to be able to search for your products in multiple different ways. And in particular, they're going to use categorizations. So for instance, the first thing that if you're selling your own products, you're not going to worry about brands. But if you're selling other people's products, if you're importing or buying products and reselling them, you're going to care about what Shopify calls vendors or brands. WooCommerce doesn't even have that out the box. But it does have other things like categories, which and Shopify has product types. So you can just type, t-shirt, shoes, whatever. Tags, for instance, maybe you say it's genuine leather. It's just an additional little bit of information people can search by. And then collections is something interesting that Shopify has, which is a way of grouping products together, like for a season, maybe it's winter clothes or something like that. And they're very, very customizable collections. And I'm not going to go into much more detail there, but if you're going to use Shopify, definitely look into collections and how they work. Now, of course, every good online store is going to have if it has many products, it's going to have a good search. And this is the basic search out the box for both. They work exactly the same. You can search by product title, description, anything like that, any kind of categorization. You will notice, though, that on the left, the WooCommerce search results page looks a lot more like a traditional e-commerce listing page, e-commerce page. Whereas on the right, the Shopify site looks much more like just a list of products, which I don't think looks very good on a desktop, on a large computer. But on phones, and they are responsive, so they both will adapt to the screen size if you're on a phone or a tablet or something. But just the layout on the right-hand side is just more approachable, more applicable for a phone. And the layout on the left is a bit better for larger screens. But this is, once again, these are just the themes that come out the box with these platforms. So you can, of course, change the theme and it'll change the layout and the look and feel. Okay, so next, very simple feature, stock and inventory management. Of course, every product. How many does the product have left? Is the product in stock or out of stock? And of course, if someone purchases a successful purchase, it's got to change the stock automatically. And you, as maybe the person who's managing the site, has to be able to edit the stock. Very simple. And all e-commerce platforms have this out the box, basically. Pretty much all of them. Cart and checkout pages, a critical component of any online store. That's obviously your shopping cart or maybe your bag. It could be called different things. And the checkout pages. I've just taken a screenshot here of the Shopify checkout page because I think they've done a really great job of making it simple, easy to navigate. You can see there's a form for filling your details on the left and like a sidebar with your cart on the right. So a really great layout. The WooCommerce cart and checkout pages have all the same features, but it's just a bit more of a sloppy layout out the box. Maybe that's being a bit harsh. It's just not as nice. But they both have all the same sort of features for cart and checkout pages. When your customers make a purchase, of course, they're going to get sent an email. Or there's many other things that they might get sent emails for. Like, for instance, if the product that they've added to their wish list is in stock or out of stock or something like that, then they're going to get an email from your site. And it's any good online store software should have templates that allow you to customize these emails that will get sent to your customers. Maybe add a bit of text, add your logo, change the colors, that sort of thing. When people purchase, you're going to need to charge delivery if you have physical products, charge for shipping or delivery. Generally, how this is done is with something called zones. So you'll have maybe different cities, different regions. You'll define them as what's usually called zones. And then each zone, like each city, like Cape Town, Joburg, can have a different rate. Or maybe you say South Africa, and within South Africa is one rate, outside of South Africa is a different rate, something like that. It might be a flat rate, a fixed amount, or a percentage, or a combination of those two. What's great is if you can offer a free option for like pickup in store if you have physical stores. And if you're going to go quite complicated, although I don't recommend this, you can charge shipping determined by the weight or the size of the products. But that gets really complicated. So if you don't need to do that, rather stick with something that's a simpler way of charging for shipping and delivery. Taxes, very, very simple. Fortunately, 15% VAT. It needs to show, obviously, all the products are just inclusive of VAT in South Africa. And then in your checkout in your cart, it needs to just show like the amount of VAT that the person's going to be is going to be charged. But it would be inclusive of the price, assuming, of course, that your accounting software takes care of your VAT calculations for you. Now, once your customers have placed orders, you're going to need to manage these orders. So when you log into your backend to manage the site, you will see these order admin pages. Now, these I've just taken the screenshots from the demo sites that I've been set up for this. And you'll see at the bottom, the Shopify screenshot is a lot more detailed. It has a bit more information. It's quicker. It's nicer to see what's going on. But the WooCommerce one is all right too. And these allow you to like bulk, like you can select the checkboxes on the left to like bulk, maybe delete orders or change their status or something like that. So when you click on an order, then you get to an order administrative page. You'll notice that the one on the right, the WooCommerce one, is a little bit more cluttered in a way as a layout. So I'm just going to hide that one and just talk about use the one on the left as an example. What you see there is a couple of things. So you'll see what products the customer and how many the customer has put in their cart, the contents. You'll see the status, like maybe the payment status and the shipping status, if it's shipped or fulfilled. And then you can see the history of that order. You can add notes, that kind of thing. So those are all of what you would expect to be able to manage and look at when managing your orders. Oh, I want to go back to this. You notice in the heading I've said orders and carts, it's also useful to be able to manage your shopping carts to see who's put what into their basket at any given time. Maybe you can send them an email or just maybe if you're testing your site, you want to see what your own shopping carts, what's in them and that kind of thing. WooCommerce doesn't have that out the box at all. You cannot see shopping carts, which I think is kind of crazy. Every other online software, e-commerce software I've seen does allow you to check out to see what carts are there. Shopify does have that. For WooCommerce, you'd have to add a plugin to see the current shopping carts. All right. When customers have purchased, it's nice for them to be able to log in to see their order history, to see the details, their like shipping details and their personal details, that kind of thing. Maybe to edit their details for future purchases. They might like to use a wish list. If you have a wish list on your site, it's really nice for them to be able to log in and manage their wish list. And perhaps you'll allow returns and exchanges as well through the client portal. It's very useful, but also you've got to decide how you want to manage returns and exchanges. Because returns and exchanges, they're not supported by default through these two platforms. So you need plugins and you need to figure out the way you want to manage them. Maybe just through a form or something like that. We'll get to forms just now. Later. Okay, let's talk through a couple of advanced e-commerce features. Just checking how I'm doing with time. I'm running a bit low on time, so I'm going to go quite quickly. If you have lots of products, you want to be able to import them in bulk, so you maybe have a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet of your products. Maybe you want the same for past orders. If you've got an old commerce store or customers, you want to bulk import customers, you should be able to do that. WooCommerce and Shopify both have great tools for that. Bulk editing features for instance, if you want to bulk edit products all in one go, or customers or orders, this can be a huge time saver. If you have hundreds or thousands of products, this is critical to be able to bulk edit. And on the right-hand side, the WooCommerce side, you can see that there's a lot, it looks a little bit more cluttered, but there's a lot more features. Whereas on the left-hand side, the Shopify, it's got a really nice interface, but it doesn't really have if you're going to edit hundreds of thousands of products, the Shopify interface makes it a lot more tedious, unfortunately. But there's ways to get around that, of course, with plugins. All right, now we briefly earlier talked about the sidebar and what I called search filters and facets, which is basically helping your customer easily search and find the products that they're looking for. So I want to just recommend, always think about this from your customer's perspective. How are they looking for their products, especially if you have lots and lots of products? So you want to keep it as simple as possible. I have over there, I've got a little example of what the Take a Lot sidebar, if you want, you used to be able to search by price, filter by price in the Take a Lot sidebar. They've recently changed it. It's a whole lot better now, but this is what it used to look like. Very, very unhelpful. If I wanted to search like 300 Rand and less, or between 100 and 500 Rand, well, no, tough luck. So you've got to think about, how do our customers want to find products? How would they like to search? Cool, I have 15 minutes. Custom categorizations. So I talked earlier about basic tags and categories, but often, especially if you have a lot of products, you're going to want to categorize your products in other ways. For instance, brands, maybe by season, maybe by use case or application of the product, or maybe by materials. If you're selling, for instance, clothing, you have different materials. So think about it in the sidebar. Maybe if you want to, in your sidebar, you would want a search box, a facet, for like different types of materials. Well, you need a custom categorization for that. And neither WooCommerce nor Shopify allow this out the box. So you need extra plugins for that kind of thing. I've put a box there on the right-hand side for landing pages, because if you can, make a landing page for each category or categorization is really great. If you have time, go check out, like, for instance, Yuppie Chef, fantastic South African e-commerce store, and they have lovely, amazing landing pages for each product category. So, like, for instance, chef's knives, it's like, it helps you choose a chef's knife, and it's nice, like almost like a big ad, because it's a really nice page to browse. So landing page is just basically a page that you can send people to like look at a bunch of products in one go, or a nicely designed page. It's nice to be able to bulk email your customers. Say, for instance, you have something coming up. Maybe it's Black Friday coming up, or you have new arrivals, promotions, maybe offering new services, anything like that. You want to be able to bulk email all your customers or a group of customers. Shopify has this built in by default, but it's kind of limited. But they do have it built in, which is quite nice, because then you can send it to specific customers or beta on their past orders, things like that. If you're doing WooCommerce, for instance, you'd have to use something external, maybe like MailChimp, which is excellent, but it won't be as nicely integrated with the e-commerce platform. Discounts and coupons are a nice marketing tool. For instance, if you want to give customers, it's summer coming up, you want to give them a discount or a coupon or something like that, so that they can type that in when they're checking out to get a discount. It could be a fixed amount or a percentage amount, anything like that. On the left, I have the screenshot from the WooCommerce coupon page, and on the right is the Shopify one. They're very, very simple. They look quite different, but they have the same features. They allow you to do the same sort of creation of coupons. But going a little bit beyond basic coupons is the concept of automatic coupons or discounts, which is really great. Something like, every time, if your order total is, let's say, over 500 Rand, then someone gets free delivery. That would be an automatic discount. They get a discount type based on their order. They don't have to type in a coupon code or anything like that. Here's the thing: Shopify allows you to have automatic discounts. They've got a great system for that, but you can only have one applicable at a time in your order. So let's say you qualify for free shipping. Well, great. Now you can't get any other automatic discounts, like a seasonal discount or something like that. On the other hand, WooCommerce doesn't have any automatic discount feature. Just something to keep in mind. Gift cards, kind of similar, where someone can purchase a gift card either for themselves or for someone else. Or as a shop owner, maybe you want to send people gift cards, maybe for their birthday or something like that. And then they can obviously, in the same way as a coupon, in the checkout process, they can use it. They can type in the gift card code, and then they get that, that amount off their order. Quite a useful tool. Only Shopify has gift cards out the box. So WooCommerce, you'd have to use a plugin for that. Now, favorites list. I think every online store should have some kind of favorites list / wish list, watch list, my list. They lots of different names for them. Unfortunately, neither WooCommerce nor Shopify have this out the box. So you've kind of got to use a plugin for either one. The screenshot I've added here is from WooCommerce, but it's from a really nice plugin that I found that worked exactly like I wanted to for my customer, for my client. It has all the features that I would expect. Like, for instance, I can add these products back to the cart, because from the wish list back into the cart, I can remove them, I can share them on social media. And one other thing to note here, notice how there's a size, it has the size of each product. So it's actually specific to the product variation, which is key, because a lot of wish lists won't work on the variation level, they'll only work on the product level. So you'd add the product to your wish list, not the specific variation. This is quite nice because on the variation level, it allows you to add the things back to your cart. If that didn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. But a wish list plugin is a really great feature to have on your site. A loyalty system, really simply, they get really complicated, but as a brief overview of how they work, you would earn points by maybe purchasing, or maybe special days like your birthday, or maybe if you share the website or a product on social media, or if you rate a product, you can earn points. Then with those points, you can redeem them by converting them into like a discount or money. And then you can use that in your checkout, either for like a discount, reduced cost of your order, or maybe free shipping or something like that. So that's generally how loyalty systems work. Neither WooCommerce nor Shopify have this built in. So, but there's lots of great loyalty systems out there, and they work in very, very different ways. So with loyalty systems, you're really going to want to have to do a lot of research before you pick one, because they're very different how they work, and they integrate in different ways with your online store. Any good business is built on the back of data, and so being able to see how your customers are engaging with your products and your website, what they're buying, when, who's buying what, and so on, is really helpful. Both of these screenshots, as you can see, I've taken from Shopify because they have such fantastic reports. On the left is like the dashboard, basic figures and charts, really nice. And on the right, there's a whole lot of really detailed custom reports, like products, sales by product over a certain product time period. Really great. WooCommerce does have reports, fairly good reports as well, but they're just not nearly as nice and well presented, and as not as detailed as this. That's why I've just added the short screenshots from Shopify. When customers have purchased, they often really like to know where, how long it's going to take to get to them and where it is at the moment. So that's where tracking and shipping info comes in. You usually want to be able to like edit an order and then add the tracking code to the order, add a link and the courier company's name and so on, and add a link that the customers can use. So if they log into the back end, as a customer, if they log in, they should be able to see this sort of information to know where their order is. Neither WooCommerce nor Shopify provide this out of the box, so you're going to have to find a way to add this. Apps, really, really useful for managing your online store. These are screenshots from the Android apps from the two, but you'll notice they're very, very similar in how they're presented, and they have pretty much the same features. Manage your products, your orders that come in, your customers, that kind of thing. Nice and simple. I would recommend using them either way. A point of sales software. This is, if you have a physical store, you're going to have some sort of terminal or like register to sell products through. In this case, a pretty common feature these days to use an iPad and use point of sale software on that iPad. And whatever point of sale software that you would use, if you have this, if it's relevant to you, then you want that to integrate nicely with your e-commerce store. Shopify has this, but built in. You can upgrade your package to the one that has this, but it's somewhat limited, and WooCommerce doesn't out the box. You'd have to have your own point of sale software, like maybe Vend, for instance, is a good one. Forms. Any good online store is going to have several forms, quite likely. This is on the left is a screenshot from the Shopify contact form, but the crazy thing is you can't even customize this form in Shopify. It's just they give you one form, contact form, that's it. WooCommerce doesn't even have any forms out the box. So for both of them, you're definitely going to want to add a plugin to give you good forms. For instance, you might have like a contact form, a feedback form, or a complaints form, or maybe an exchanges form, or there's loads of different forms you might want. And on the right-hand side, I've just listed a couple of things you might want to look for in the plugin that when you're considering plugins to use. Lastly, let's talk about briefly blog site features. So this is going beyond e-commerce, and I really just want to focus on one thing, and this is where WordPress and WooCommerce is really going to shine, because WooCommerce is built on top of WordPress, which is not just for e-commerce. So they have this really, as of about a year and a half ago, WordPress has this great page builder. So on the right-hand side, you can see I'm building a page. It's got all those little like widgets that you can drag and drop into your page, and you build your page like that. For instance, you can add paragraphs of text, pictures, columns, a table, maybe a list of products, a carousel or a slider. All these kinds of things. You want to build your pages up, and maybe to make your landing pages that I talked about earlier. Well, that you can build in WooCommerce for any number of pages. You can just build them, which is great. And every theme, whatever theme you choose, they're probably going to just make this look a little different, but make it look good. Here's the crazy thing. In Shopify, there's a similar page builder, but it only works on the home page. Like literally, it only works on the home page, which I think is bizarre, and I don't know why they have that limitation, but they have a nice page builder. It's similar to this, but it only works on the home page. So every other page, you can add other pages in Shopify, but they're just going to be like plain text and very simple pictures. All right, so this is an overview of all the features that I've gone through. Don't worry about the table too much, because you can always come back to the slides from the link. But I just want you to see that both platforms have a lot of, they're very, very similar, right? They have a lot of the basic features that are covered, and then some of the advanced features they have, and some of the advanced features they don't. But in either case, you're probably going to want to extend them quite a lot. So they have a lot of capacity for adding plugins and extensions. And in general, you get what you pay for. Although WordPress is free, but like, you know, I say free, but like you've got to pay someone to build the site for you, or you've got to spend the time to build it yourself. So when you want to extend your site, you're going to be choosing plugins or apps. Just some quick overview of how this would work. So firstly, you'd figure out, what do you need beyond the basics that we've talked about? What other extra things do you need? So maybe you look at competitor sites or sites that you really like. So you look at what you need, then you look at the options. How many, maybe for instance, wish list plugins are out there? Which ones are good for you? You look at the pricing and the features and so on. Then you've got to, pick one. You've got to test them, try them out, select one, and then install the one that you've selected at the end and set it up. So it's a lot. It can be a lot of work. Selecting apps and plugins, sometimes called extensions or modules. Every software calls them a different thing. So in addition to, like the themes, you get some extensions and plugins that are free, but then most of them, especially the really good ones, for both WooCommerce and Shopify, they're going to either have a monthly cost or an annual cost. And in general, the more expensive plugins are better, but that's not always the case, but often. But in addition to that cost, you've also got the time to find and install it. You've got the maintenance time of the site. When it gets more complicated, you've got to maintain it. So you might have to have someone on your team constantly updating the website. And of course, if you're going with WooCommerce in particular, you've got to just be concerned about security as well. Just making sure you do backups and updates and things like that. So keeping the site fresh and secure. Last couple of considerations quickly. You want to consider the size of your community. So how many people are actually using the software? The more people that are using it, the more plugins and themes there are going to be, and the more people and any kind of question that you have, the more likely you are to find an answer. Similar with quality of documentation. I do find that the Shopify documentation is a bit better with great videos and stuff and great pages, but they're both pretty good with documentation. And then consider who the software is made for. Is it made for business owners to make their own website? Is it made for someone quite tech savvy to make a website, like maybe an in-house tech savvy person? Or is it made for developers, someone who's paid to make websites for other people? So maybe just look at the homepage of the software to decide, is it designed for people like me? And lastly, if you're going to get the site built by someone else, what's the process of finding developers in your city or in your area? Just a quick note on pricing. I did mention that Shopify has a monthly cost. It has 3 different tiers. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but basically it has a monthly cost, and it also takes a percentage of all your revenue. So, it can be huge costs. For example, if you were earning 100,000 Rand in revenue per month, just from sales, you would expect to pay 2.5 grand per month for Shopify. This is just for Shopify, before plugins and themes and extensions and things, which you'd also pay for with WooCommerce. But if you had sales and revenue of about 1 million Rand per month, then you can expect to pay 10 to 11,000 Rand for Shopify. So that is definitely a consideration. For those people who are building with WordPress, and this is particularly for the developers, for a minute, you're probably quite familiar with this, but there's a couple of basic considerations. These are just examples here on the left-hand column, and on the right-hand column, a bunch of extra things you would want to look for when you're looking for a host for your WordPress website. Down at the bottom, I've put a couple of logos of some pretty good South African web hosts. I particularly love Exnito. I think their service is excellent, but the others are good too. So if you're a WordPress developer, this is what you would need to consider. And that is it. That's popular WordPress and popular e-commerce platforms 2020. And if you want to get in touch with me, remember, so questions you can post in the chat, and otherwise there's my email address. You're welcome to give me send me a message. And good luck with your sites. I hope they go forth and prosper. And thanks. Cheers.